brain is doing. You can do corrugator muscle analysis. Whenever you kind of do this, you go, I don't like that. You have these muscles that do things, and you can look at that. If you ask people to do this, heterosexual males and females, okay, here's the condition, 2 conditions. Think about your romantic partner, the person that you like the best, forming a strong emotional bond with a member of the opposite sex. Okay? How upset does that make you? Think about that. The person that you're bonded with, forming a strong emotional bond with another person. I can talk to that person. Think about this. The person that you like the best, your partner. Imagine that person having hot, steamy sex, intense, with a person of the opposite sex, not you. Generate those. Okay, here's the question. Which one, both are upsetting. Which one is more upsetting?
I think the emotional one.
I think I'm an outlier because I think the emotional one's it.
So, you have a girlfriend, wife, whatever. Imagining her getting close to another guy and being able to talk with him is more upsetting than imagining her. Imagine the sexual positions now. All right. This study's been done in many different ways, and it comes out. I mean, there are going to be individual differences, and because we're talking about. But we see is this incredible disconnect. On average, most women respond like this woman. Yeah, they both piss me off, but the emotional stuff really pisses me off even more. For men, can't even imagine thinking about it. I'm just starting to get pissed off when the image comes to my head. I'm ready to kill somebody. And this is exactly what you would predict from parental investment theory. Parental investment theory makes that very specific prediction. You have this nice interaction. What Bueller says is, well, that kind of stuff is just from forced answers on questionnaires. Yes, no, which one makes you... And it's an artifact of the way you measure it. And then David Buss went back and measured it about 3 different ways and confirmed it over and over and over. This is pretty well confirmed. Both piss you off, but which one piss you off more? Are there problems facing EP? Yes, there are lots of problems. You guys are very tired. This is a big one. We can't really study these circuits yet. We don't have the technology to be able to do this. But with optogenetics and with very fast computers, we might be able to actually take a look and monitor the brains in real time to be able to pull out what these circuits are, if they actually exist. These domains of cognition are pretty ad hoc. What's an object? I don't know. Is it a line thing? Who knows? It's not clear what the evolutionary problem is being solved. For example, bipedalism, everybody agrees, is an adaptive problem. But really, what's being solved there? Which problem is being solved? Running away from a lion? Being able to walk in a straight line because your legs are the straight length? Being able to stand straight up so you can see over the savannah? What problem is being solved there? Understanding of the EEA, this is the environment of evolutionary adaptiveness. We don't know. We weren't there. We talked about the hunter-gatherer theory, the Pleistocene, but maybe there were other ways that we interacted. And there's a lot of good work in EP, but here's and this is important, and this is something I try to point out to my students, is that you need to come up with non-evolutionary explanations, alternate hypotheses, and test them against it. Because if you're not testing it against other explanations and hypotheses, do not make reference to this, you're engaged in a verification scheme. You're trying to find evidence for what you believe to be true in terms of your theory. You're not testing the theory. In the end, it is an empirical question. Don't you agree? It is an empirical question. The degree to which our minds are evolved and the degree to which it is bounded by very specific learning mechanisms. And you've been so nice to be able to listen to me rant and rave about this stuff. This is more than enough. This is an introduction to evolutionary psychology, maybe then some. If you have any questions, you want to leave, you want to go to the bathroom. Anyway, I'm done, so thank you for your attention. Yes, ma'am.
Come back and talk about bisexuality and homosexuality.
Yeah, the idea of sexual. There are some very interesting theories. Inclusive fitness theory is one of those theories that people have tried to help explain the emergence of homosexuality in populations. So it turns out homosexual behavior is ubiquitous across the animal kingdom, as you probably know. And with respect to population statistics, a particular behavior can be sustained in a population as long as it doesn't exceed some critical level. So there's a subpopulation. So human beings have niches. It's not just there are niches that, and so homosexuality it serves a niche. If everybody were homosexual, that would be a problem. Yes? Turns out homosexuals do reproduce, by the way. Not necessarily at the same rate as heterosexuals, but they do reproduce. And there are a lot of theories on that, but that's a hard nut to crack. And evolutionary psychologists are there dealing with that. Yes, sir.
In respect to things like deep instincts, like penchant for fatty foods, healthy foods, how long does that take to change that instinct, evolutionary? And is that a fixed time? And if it's not a fixed time, is there a way that we can artificially speed it up?
Yeah, I think that we're entering in a post-Darwinian phase in human evolution. We had the prokaryote phase, which was not particularly evolutionary. We had lateral transfer of genes. And the eukaryote phase, now we had natural selection mechanisms that are in play. And so we've been in sort of a eukaryote phase for 3 billion years. Human beings are now in a position that we can control our own genome. And so I think we're in a pace where we can actually do that. And so I think we can control that. In terms of how long it takes 20 to 20,000 years on average. 20,000 to 200,000 years for an adaptation to emerge ubiquitously in a population. It takes many generations. I doubt that our liking of fat and salt is going to change very much. What'll change is that we have other modules in place. We have other mechanisms. We have other motivations in place. So I may still want that fat, and I do because I like that fat, but I want other things too. I want a body that's going to be attractive to the opposite sex. That motivation is going to circumvent, for example, maybe overindulging in those kind of things. These modules are thought to be semi-independent. They sometimes work together. They sometimes work against each other. And so the liking of those things, in terms of our fundamental physiology, I think it's going to be here for a long time. But unless we come in and directly affect our genome, which we can, and change our taste preferences.
So if it takes that long, is there some kind of tally being kept where it's like, oh, we've reached X number of stimulants, I guess it's time to actually flip over? Or is it very gradual?
It's gradual. It's a gradual shift.
So can we just chop out a big middle section?
Absolutely. By going directly and manipulating your genome. That's how you do it. I don't know of any other way to do it. Yes, sir.
I want to thank you first for your talk. That was very clear. It was easy to follow. As you, I'm sure, know better than I do.
Not necessarily.
Besides the skeptics in the psychology field, probably your next biggest group of skeptics are in the philosophy of mind field. And the thing that I always hear in our department is that kind of how, the big objection to Freudianism and all these things was that it tried to explain everything. And you ran into this kind of problem of falsification. Well, I think EP has done a good job of not going down that road. But there's another road that it seems that it goes down to, and you hit at it in your controversial slide where it starts talking about art and literature and philosophy. And that is when it starts talking about reasoning and truth and so forth. And it seems like you then explain away truth as an adaptive feature, a functional thing. And so then you lose your basis for being impartial or objective or whatever, and going outside of yourself and looking back on yourself or whatever. I don't know if I'm being clear on that, but it's like if function does not equal truth. Just because something works doesn't mean that that's a model that correctly describes the behavior. And so if our ability to think critically about the world is just an adaptive feature for survival, and we have all these evolutionary psychology models, then what is the model that makes evolutionary psychology true? It seems like it explains that away and becomes circular.
Well, the extent to which the claims are not falsifiable is the extent to which the claim is not scientific. And this has been what you were suggesting has been a big criticism of people like, well, Stephen Jay Gould criticized evolutionary psychologists as being pan-adaptationists. We think that everything's an adaptation, which we don't. We certainly are aware of spandrels, byproducts, genetic drift, bottlenecks, and there are a lot of genetic things that can happen that aren't adaptive. What Edward Hagen says is that, look, can we at least ask the question? And it's an empirical question. But I'm not sure I really understand your question with respect to truth. Our capacities to interact with the environment and represent environmental features in an abstract way, evolutionary psychologists, is an adaptation. It's a function of underlying modules or module. The ability to be able to note relationships among ideas. We've simply applied them now to be able to understand features of the environment that seems to be useful and that we can make some kind of truth statements. I don't know if there's anything inconsistent with an evolutionary psych. Here's the thing. Are we able to come up with truth statements in philosophy? It's syllogistic reasoning. Aren't we? Isn't that true whether or not we're evolved specialized mechanisms or not?
Well, I want to say so, but couldn't you then say that I'm just evolved to think that?
Well,
in other words, the phenomenology is, I think it's me doing all this, but it's just the way I'm evolved to think that.
Well, then the way you were evolved allows you to interact with the environment in certain ways. You did not evolve perceptual mechanisms of a spider to be able to see organisms or to build a web that reflects light that the prey cannot see. That's its niche, and that's what it does. You evolve certain kinds of mechanisms, and so this is called, I think what you're getting at is, I'm blanking out the word, I think it's Wallace's paradox. How in the heck is it that we're able to do calculus and all these things when our ancestors never evolved the capacity to do calculus or to do these high-level mathematical problems? How do you explain that? How would you explain it?
They obviously did evolve it. If we have the same genes.
What Pinker has said and other people have said is that it turns out being able to interact with the environment, find out what is the best habitat, selective mechanisms are involved. Is that a good place to bed down? Who am I going to trust? How am I going to form coalitions to be able to go on big hunts? Because if you're going to go on big hunts, that requires groups of people getting together, requires communication, requires cooperative mechanisms. That's a lot harder than doing calculus. A lot harder than doing calculus. And the mechanisms that are evolved to be able to take those things can now be used for something different. Okay, it's installing new software. You have the basic mechanism. We have the basic computers. And so you did not evolve. All of us, do you use Word? The word processor Word? And if you double-click Word on your computer, and your computer, and your computer, and your computer, Word comes up, yes? And it has an underlying structure. But you know what Word has the capacity to do? Change the margins, change the fonts, change the number of columns, change the orientation. And so when I print out my Word document, I made a big banner. You did a 3-column newspaper printout. Somebody did a brochure fold out. And you look at the products and you see what's